Okay, children. So, moving on to the next part, exercise 21.4. Complete the following table by examining the functions. So, now we drew around 5 graphs previously, right, children? So, just by actually, you should be able to write. Now, these are actually the questions I was asking you in the previous video. Also, I was explaining you about these things, right? So the thing is, children, you need to fill this table actually without drawing the graph. So you need to be able to, now if you wrote all those four questions, if I gave you 4 questions, right? So if you wrote those answers for the 4 questions in all the four of 5 graphs, children, answering these without drawing the graph is quite easy. Okay, so one thing I missed in the previous video is, children, okay, I think I did not tell you how to identify the maximum and minimum. I was telling you how to identify it by looking at the graph, right? So I was telling you in the previous video, if you have this shape, okay, then it's a minimum. And if you have the other shape like this, then it's a maximum. So this is how I told you. I didn't tell you how to identify maximum minimum just by looking at the equation. Okay, so I think even now you must have noticed that the minimum shape we got. So you drew 5 graphs, am I correct? So you drew 5 graphs. The graphs were y equal x square. So just observe, children, you drew y equal 2x square, and then you drew y equal 3x square, am I correct? And then you drew y equal minus 2x square. You drew y equal minus x square, and you drew y equal minus 2x square, am I correct? So you drew these 5 graphs. Okay, so you must have observed, children, that in the first 3, the x square, 2x square and 3x square, go back to the pages and see. So you will notice that these 3 graphs are what you have the minimum. You have the graph in this shape, am I correct? Go back and see these 3 graphs you are having the minimum shape, while these 2 graphs you are having the maximum shape. Okay, I hope you all are getting it, children. These 2 graphs, these 3 you are having the minimum, and these 2 you are having the maximum. So children, without actually drawing the graph, so just by looking at the equation, Putala, I want you to tell me whether we are drawing a maximum graph or whether we are drawing a minimum graph. So I think when looking at this, you must have noticed the pattern, right? So you must have noticed here that I got the maximum when I have a minus mark outside the x square. You observe that, children. So when with the x square, if your x square is having a negative coefficient, okay, so if your x square is negative, children, you will end up getting maximum graphs, while if your x square is positive, you will end up getting minimum graphs. Are you getting what I'm saying? Are you getting what I'm saying? So it's a simple fact. Please write that down. Okay, please write that down. If the x square coefficient is positive, then you end up getting a positive graph. If your x square coefficient is negative, then you end up getting a maximum graph. Please write that down as a very important point, because you need to be able, now in these questions, children, they are asking you to write the minimum or the maximum. So you need to be able to figure out whether this is actually a maximum or a minimum. Okay, so I hope you all are getting that point. If your x square is positive, it's a minimum. If your x square coefficients are negative, it's a maximum. Okay, so I think we can fill this table quite easily now. So when you look at y equals 5x square, children, looking at this function, so we are not going to draw it. We are not going to make a table. We are not going to draw it. I want you to fill these values for me. So when you take y equals 5x square, is it a minimum or is it a maximum, children? What do you notice? Can you all say the answer to yourself so that you can check whether you are correct? So when you see y equals 5x square, you understand here the x square coefficient is 5. It's a positive value, right? So it's a positive 5. So 5x square means it's a minimum. So it's a minimum. Okay, so this is a minimum graph, and children, you must have noticed. So now the first question they are, okay, right, it's a minimum graph. They have not asked that. This is a minimum graph. Okay, and then the first thing they are asking you is coordinates of turning point. So you must have observed, children, in all these graphs that we drew, okay, whether it's minimum or maximum. So these are the maximum graphs. So you must have noticed, children, the turning point coordinates. Can you see here? The turning point coordinates in all these graphs are actually what? This is the turning point, right? You know, this is the turning point. So in all the graphs, you must have observed the turning point in all of them is what? 0, 0. This coordinate is called 0, 0, right? So in these graphs and even in the other 3 graphs here, These are the minimum graphs. So even in here you can observe, children, the turning point in all these graphs are what? 0, 0. So they've drawn all three on one. You don't have to do it, but you can see here all the all of those types of graphs. Okay, in all those types of graphs, the turning point is at 0, 0. Okay, so in these types of graphs, okay, so in all these graphs, children, so it doesn't matter, I mean, as long as you have the format. Actually we call this format, I think I gave you the topic also, right, the previous week. This format is called y equal ax square. The format is called y equal ax square. So if your graph is following the format y equal ax square, children, okay, then the graphs are either going to be centered around, it's going to be like this if it's minimum. So if your a value is positive, this is the coefficient. If your a value is positive, this is the a value positive graph. Okay, so this is the a positive graph. A positive means what? If your a value is positive, you get a minimum graph. Are you okay with that? A value is positive means you get a minimum graph. And the other graph you have is when a is negative, you get the maximum graph. So when a is negative, you get the maximum graph. This is when a is negative. Okay, so when a is negative, you get the maximum graph. So you can see, children, in both the cases, okay, in both these cases, now we are talking about this format. Okay, so in both the cases, children, in both the cases, children, the turning point coordinates are 0, 0. Okay, so y equal ax square type, the coordinates are 0, 0. So coordinates of turning point 0, 0. So actually that will be true for all of them. Okay, regardless whether it's a maximum or a minimum, all of these guys turning points are gonna be 0, 0. I hope you are okay with that, children. Okay, then the next one, minimum value of y, and there is another thing called maximum value of y and equation of axis of symmetry. Now you have to understand, children, if the graph is a minimum, then you have a minimum y value. But if your graph is a maximum only, you have a maximum y value. Therefore, I mean, when you take a single graph, you can't fill both of them. You can't fill both of them because you don't have a minimum and a maximum both in one graph. Okay, so one of these is going to be a blank. So for example, in this question, 5x square, we know it's a minimum graph. Why? Because here the a value, or here you have the value 5 is positive. Okay, so this is the a value. Okay, so the a value, it's 5. Just 5 means a is positive, means it's the minimum. So then in here the minimum y value, children. So I think I showed you in the previous video also. The smallest y value we have is what? Y equals 0. So the minimum y value we have is 0. And then the maximum, do we have a maximum in a minimum graph? So we don't have a maximum in a minimum graph. So you will leave this blank. This is supposed to be left blank. So in the minimum graph, you will only fill the minimum column. Okay, so if it's a minimum, you will fill the minimum y value. If it's a maximum graph, you should fill the maximum y value. And then equation of axis of symmetry, I was explaining this to you in the earlier video. So this is the axis of symmetry, right? So this yellow color line, in both the graph, the axis of symmetry is the yellow color line, and this line is the y axis is called the x equals 0 line. I was telling you the y axis is called the x equals 0 line. So in all these graphs, so as long as your graph is in this format, actually all these answers are going to be x equals 0 axis of symmetry, right? Do you get it? All of them. Okay, all these graphs are going to be x equals 0 axis of symmetry. Okay, all of these are going to be x equals 0 axis of symmetry. So we don't need to think of it specially. All the graphs are going to be like that. Okay, so now I had only filled these two so accordingly. So for example, in here, now when I go to the next one, it's minus 1 over 3. So minus 1 over 3 means you observe there's a minus mark. So when there's a minus mark, what does that mean? A minus mark in front means this is the maximum graph. So that means this is a max. This is a maximum graph. So in a maximum graph, children, we don't have a minimum y value. So this is going to be blank. In a maximum graph, we don't have a minimum y value. Okay. Then maximum y value. So in a maximum graph, the maximum y value is going to be 0. The maximum y value is also going to be 0. You can see here, the highest y value we reach here is, this is the highest y value, then that's going to be 0. So actually what you have here is you will have the y equals 0 value. Alternatively here, if you have a minus mark, then you must write the maximum y value 0 in the maximum y value. If it's a minimum, then you must write in the minimum side. Okay, so it's not difficult. You can fill the remaining part of the table and send me the answers. Okay, so I think yeah, that would be enough. So I think you can also do this question. Yeah, I think you can draw the graphs. Okay, so maybe you can try question number 2. So question number 2, you can try and send me the answers. Incomplete table. Okay, so you have to complete the table and draw the graph separately for the functions and the axis of symmetry, coordinates of turning point, and maximum or minimum value. Yeah, so you can do that. I will just help you to complete the table, children. So you can see in this case they've actually done the table for you, né? So they have given the table and they've actually done most of the table for you. So you just have to fill only 2 values, right? So then you don't have to make a huge table. Okay, so when they give you a table and like most of the values are filled, children, what you can do is you can write here, for example, y equal 1 over 3x square. So you don't have to make a big table. Now in the previous lesson, you remember I was telling you make x, then make x square, then I would make 1 over 3x square, then I would get y and I would make a big table like this, right? So there is actually no need to do like that because most of the values they have given. Okay, so in that case we can because they have given you the answers for around 3 of these x values, we only have to find the answers for 2 of them. There is another way of filling the table, children, actually without drawing like this. We can even do it like this. I'm not saying something that's difficult. Okay, if you want, draw the table. I have no objection. I showed you how to draw I showed you the columns of the rows of the table also. So the easiest way of doing this is, okay, you take now for example, I need to find the y value when x is minus 3, right? So when x is minus 3, I want to know this y value. Okay, so how do I get this y value? So what I do here is I replace this x value with minus 3. I replace the x value with minus 3. Okay, so I'm going to replace the x value with, okay, so I'm going to substitute x as minus 3. Children, this is another way of doing this. Okay, so I did not do this method in the previous questions. Okay, so maybe doing the table I feel maybe doing the table might be easier also for you all since you are used to that. Okay, but let me show you this and then maybe I'll do the table as well, because sometimes it might not go to your head because we've been doing one method and now I'm changing the method. Okay, so what we do here is we write, I'll just show you this. Okay, I'll show you this, then I'll show the table as well. So what you do is you substitute x as minus 3. So here you get 1 over 3. X is minus 3, right? So you substitute x as minus 3. So minus 3 and then square. Okay, so you get here 1 over 3. Minus 3 square is, children, I hope you know what it means. Minus 3 square is minus 3 into minus 3. So minus into minus is plus, 3 into 3 is 9. So this is going to be 9. Minus 3 square is directly going to be 9. Okay, so 9 over 1. So this is how much, children? 1 over 3 into 9 is, you can cut the 3 and 9. 3 times 1, 3 times 3. The answer is going to be y equal 3. So the answer here is going to be, children, simply 3. When x is minus 3, y is 3. Okay, so let me show that to you from the table also, because I think you might be familiar with the table. Okay, so the x table values are, they have given here. Please use the values they have given. Don't use your own values for them. When they are giving you a table with their own values, you use those values. Don't go to use any other values. Minus 6, minus 3, 0, 3, 6. Okay, so let me show it to you how we would do from this value. So I think you are used to the table, ne? Okay, so our graph is y equal 1 over 3x square, right? So when you see 1 over 3x square, how do you build the table? How do you build the table? So the columns are going to be, children, okay, so columns are going to be, anyway the next column definitely has to be x square. Okay, so the next column definitely has to be x square. Okay, and then the next one has to be, children, 1/3 of the x square. The next column has to be 1/3 of the x square, and final column has to be y. Okay, so please draw it neatly. Don't draw it like this with the ruler. Do it properly. So x square values, children, so x value is there. So the x square value is going to be, you square this. You know what's going to happen? Minus 6 when you are squaring it. Okay, so you are squaring minus 6 here, which means you write minus 6 twice. So minus 6 into minus 6. That's going to become minus into minus is plus. 6 times 6 is 36. So you have experience filling this. Minus 3 square is minus into minus plus. 3 times 3, 9. This is 0. 3 times 3, 9. 6 times 6, 36. Then 1/3 x square means, children, these x square values, okay, so yeah, 1/3 means, children, in other words, you are dividing by 3. Okay, so you are taking 1/3 of 36. That's what's happening. So here 1/3 of x square means here 1/3 of 36. That's what's actually happening. Okay, so 1/3 of 36 means you can actually cut it off. 3 times 1, 3 times 12, right? So this answer is going to be 12. 1/3 of 9. Okay, so I hope you are getting it, children. 1/3 of 9. So you can cut 3 and 9. That's going to give you 3 times 1, 3 times 3. So the answer is going to be 3. 1/3 of 0, children. 0 times anything is 0. 1/3 of 9 is again 3. 1/3 of 36 is 12. And then finally the y answer. So we know what y is equal to 1/3 x square. So 1/3 x square answer I found. So y is actually equal to 1/3 x square, which means the y answers are going to be 12, 3, 0, 3, 12. So you can see actually I got the same answer here for when x is minus 3. Look, children, when x is minus 3, so I got the y answer as 3. Can you see? I got the same answer even when I did the other method. So this other method is a little bit shorter because I am not finding all the x values. You can see that most of the here this 12, the 0 and 3, those are already given in this table. Okay, so when you are making the table, you end up finding all the y values. But in here, when certain y values are given, you can just put the remaining x values to the equation. You can put these remaining x values to this equation and find the y values over here. So even if you do in either way, it's okay, children. So if you are used to this, please go ahead with that. So now I want you to draw the graph and answer these questions. So that can be easily done, right? So make sure you do that, and you send the answers. And if there are any doubts, you can always ask. So make sure you ask because it's really important you understand these basic graphs, because we are going to move in the next section. We are going to move to the next part of our graph lesson. Okay, thank you, children.